Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline is college football insider and expert Phil Steele. Phil, welcome back to BYU Sports Nation.
Hey, always a pleasure being on, guys.
Great to have you with us. We are going to pick your brain for some awesomeness, hopefully, if you're okay with that. Let's start with you listing Taysom Hill as the BYU starter in your 2016 college football preview. Why do you think it will be Taysom Hill taking snaps in game number 1 against Arizona?
I got to be honest with you, that was one of those 51-49 decisions because, when you look at Tanner Magnum, you're looking at a guy that was highly productive last year. In fact, set BYU Frosh records for yards, completions, attempts, touchdowns, and even wins. And, he was coming out of high school, Tanner Magnum, my number 8 rated QB out of high school, and Taysom Hill, of course, brings the mobility to the position. New head coach, you wonder which way he's going to go. I'm going to ask you guys, who are you leaning with for the quarterback spot?
It all depends on if Taysom Hill's healthy. If he's healthy, I think the consensus is that it will probably be Taysom Hill. But my pick, if you had to say right now who it's going to be, it's probably going to be Tanner Mangum, just because we don't know the health of Taysom Hill.
Excellent. Appreciate that.
You are welcome. Jerem Jordan delivering the goods right now. We've been asking our fans today because the NBA Finals are over, epic Game 7. Now we're in the summer officially. What in the world do you do to pass the time other than reading the Phil Steele season preview magazine to get to football? What do you do, Phil?
Well, June and July are basically my summer vacation months. I do about 6 to 10 radio shows per day, and I'm only working about 50 hours a week. It's almost like being on vacation the entire 2 months. Put together a couple of watch lists maybe for the awards, things like that. But it's definitely my chill time of the year. I get to go outside and go in the pool a little bit and things like that.
You're only working 50 hours a week? That's the slow time?
Oh, it's like being on vacation right now.
I noticed in your preview of BYU, and thanks for the magazine, by the way, 4 of your 9 power ratings are calling for 9 or more wins for BYU. This jumped out at me. More than anything else that you had in there, because we look at this tough schedule for BYU, and we think it's going to be a tough haul for BYU to get to that 8 or 9 mark. What makes, in your power ratings, why do you think 4 of the 9 are calling for 9 or more wins?
It's just the way it played out this year, and of course that means that 5 of the 9 are not calling for 9 or more wins. But, when you look at BYU, there's a lot of games which could go either way. And I guess in these 4 particular sets of power ratings, and they're all compiled different ways. I've got 9 different ways of doing a power rating on a team, and that's why I like to play 9 games into the schedule. But you look at some of the toss-up games this year, a game like Arizona right out of the box. I think that's a winnable game for BYU. Some of the power ratings calling for them to lose, some calling for them to win. UCLA at home, that's a winnable game. West Virginia, even in Landover, is a winnable game. I think the only 2 games which BYU is a clear-cut underdog this year, are at Michigan State, at Boise State. All the other games fall into that possible loss category. Naturally, there's a lot of definite wins that you look at the schedule, Southern Utah, UMass, etc. But there is a lot of vague territory there in the power ratings based on the schedule and how close the teams are.
College football expert Phil Steele on BYU Sports Nation. How many wins would you call a success for BYU with a brand new coaching staff against what you called, in your words, in the magazine preview, a killer schedule?
I would say 8 or 9 wins. I would consider it a success for the new head coach, because generally when a first-year head coach comes in, you have to learn the players' strengths and weaknesses, and then, of course, the players have to learn new schemes, and they are changing schemes on both sides of the ball. So that's a lot of work to do. The schedule, facing 5 Power 5 teams this year, as well as some of the top teams from the Group of 5 conferences. You're looking at teams like Cincinnati, one of the top teams from the AAC, Boise State, one of the top, if not the top Mountain West team, Toledo, one of the top teams out of the MAC, Utah State, a team that, it had an off year last year, but Wells has always got them in the proper spot. I think BYU's facing a very tough schedule.
When you look at BYU's first 8, that will really tell you how BYU does, because November seems to be less strenuous than the first 8. BYU kind of ran out of gas and ran into a really good Michigan team last year. Do you think that's a concern for BYU, playing so many tough teams, 6 Power 5s in the first 8 games, plus Toledo and Boise State in the first 8?
Yeah, it is, especially as you've touched on, the Michigan game. They were coming off, of course, 3 last-second games right down to the wire, and it's tough for any team to go through that. And then having to travel to UCLA, fly back home, travel all the way to Michigan. it was the perfect storm for BYU to come up short. And then you look at the schedule this year. As you know, I think provided they don't have all those last-second finishes like they did last year, they may be better equipped to handle the schedule. But Arizona at Utah, UCLA, West Virginia, Toledo, at Michigan State, Mississippi State, at Boise. There is no break in the first 8 weeks of the season. That's really going to determine a lot. They finally get that bye prior to Cincinnati.
What will BYU's record be in the regular season in 2016?
I'm going to go with 7-5.
That's along the lines of what we think, especially with the new head coach. And being that we are with BYU TV, we almost don't want to put the pressure on this new coaching staff by saying 9 or 10, and then if they come up with 8, it'd be under. But what role do you think having a new coaching staff will play in maybe getting Kalani Sitake getting his influence into the program in this first year against a tough schedule?
Well, like I said, a lot of times the first year for a new head coach, it's somewhat of a learning experience, a rebuilding year, and because they have to learn the players' strengths and weaknesses, the players have to learn new schemes. But sometimes when a new head coach comes in, if they can have their early season success, then the players quickly buy into the program. So it's going to be tough for BYU to have a lot of early season success. But if they do pull some upsets early on, you may have the players buying into the program a bit earlier.
I'm going to list 2 opponents for you, Phil, and I want you to tell me which of these teams BYU is more likely to beat. At Utah in Week 2 or against West Virginia at FedEx Field in Washington, D.C. in Week 4?
I rate them both fairly close, but I think the West Virginia game is a little more on the winnable side in the fact that West Virginia, their defense is on the rebuilding side this year. They lose a lot of starters off the defensive side of the ball, and they've got a wild card at the quarterback position. Last year, for most of the season, they received pretty average quarterback play out of Skylar Howard. Now, Howard had a tremendous bowl game. I mean, in the bowl game against Arizona State, he threw for 532 yards. But the rest of the year, he was sort of below average or average. And if they get Skylar Howard on one of those average days with a defense that only has 4 returning starters, I think Utah's a better team than West Virginia. The fact that it's at more of a neutral site than it is at the opposing stadium helps as well. But I think both games fall into the winnable category.
A lot of the national media have left Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams, who in 2013 both ran for at least 1,200 yards, off of a lot of their lists. It's almost like they've been forgotten because they were out a year, which is fair. It's like a guy goes on a mission at BYU, you kind of forget about him until he comes back, right? Do you think that there's the possibility that they can get back to form and maybe surprise some people since they did miss last year and have been a little forgotten?
Well, as you guys talked about, Taysom Hill, we need to find him 100% healthy so that he does end up beating out Tanner Mangum for the job. But I think when you look at Hill, he can be that electrifying player. I think Jamal Williams might have a little bit better chance because he sat out last year. Not necessarily, it wasn't because of an injury. So I mean, when you look at Williams, he's a guy that 2 years ago, or back in 2013, I should say, rushed for 1,233 yards and 5.7 yards per carry. You look at the line he's running behind. They've got a veteran offensive line in front of them with about 100 career starts coming back. So that bodes well for the running game. I think Jamal Williams has a chance for a big year this year.
College football expert Phil Steele with us on BYU Sports Nation. Phil, where are you right now?
Location-wise?
Yeah. You're not on vacation, are you?
No, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. Oh, you're in Cleveland, Ohio.
Celebratory city right now.
What is that like right now with the Cavs winning the championship?
Everybody's pretty much talking to Cavs right now, buying Cavaliers shirts and things like that. Myself being pretty much a college football guy and NFL guy, not as much into the NBA, but it was nice for after 52 years and not having a championship here to finally get one.
52 years. I think we're all collectively happy for the city of Cleveland. Okay, I did want to ask you about this. With Tanner Mangum and Taysom Hill, whoever the starter is, it's nice that Kalani Sitake is going to have a reliable starter come game number 1 against Arizona. Where do those two quarterbacks in the quarterback position group overall rank against the rest of the nation?
Put them two together. I've got them number 9 in the country right now because of the fact you've got the depth. And I think if either one was standing by themselves with an inexperienced backup, I'd have them a little bit lower than that. but you got to like the fact that you've got two very capable quarterbacks and two quarterbacks that can give you a different dimension. I thought Tanner Mangum last year was just a great thrower, and I like the way that he won those games in the clutch. Taysom Hill gives you that running ability out of the position, but both are capable of throwing it, and I think with Hill's mobility, it's an exciting thing to have at the quarterback position. So I rate the two quarterbacks combined number 9 in the country right now.
Where can BYU on the schedule, with a couple of games in your opinion, make the biggest splash nationally with wins?
Oh, it would definitely be early in the season. I mean, to come out of the gate, maybe upset in Arizona. If they can somehow manage that September schedule and come out of there with, let's say, 4 wins, everybody's going to be talking about BYU because they'll have beaten some top-notch teams. You know, you look at Utah; the odds are they'll be ranked. UCLA could be ranked. West Virginia's getting a lot of publicity in the Big 12. Arizona's a bowl team. So you're talking about at the start of the year facing 8 bowl teams to come out of the month of September with 3 or 4 wins would be a huge positive.
For BYU to be ranked at the end of the regular season, and I'm talking college football playoff rankings, which they have yet to ascend into, how many games do they have to win?
9 or 10.
And that would be quite the run. Taysom Hill or Tanner Mangum. We look at the quarterbacks for the opponents, and I look at that schedule and I say, aside from Josh Rosen, I think that BYU has an equal to or better quarterback than the rest of the teams. What's your opinion of that?
I'm glancing down the schedule right now, and so far I can't argue. I mean, you look at the fact that, like Michigan State is going to have a first-year starter, Mississippi State's going to have a first-year starter. Boise would be tough because Boise's got a pretty good quarterback there. So it's they don't have the depth. They don't have 2 guys, but Boise's got a pretty good quarter in Rippon. And you look at the fact that he threw for a whole bunch of yards last year, and they get that game at home. Cincinnati's got a guy in Gunnar Kiel where if he's 100% back, and remember he missed the spring game, missed the bowl game, he's got NFL potential. He's a big guy, big thrower. But once again, you go back to BYU's situation, you got better depth, although since he had their backup quarterback play. So there's a couple teams on there that could contend with BYU, but I believe I have BYU rated higher quarterback-wise than most of those.
Phil, when and where does the magazine hit the newsstands, and is it available digitally for BYU fans to partake?
Yes, it is. Now, it hits the newsstands officially on June the 28th. That's when it will be available at Walmart's, Walgreens, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target, CVS, Publix, etc. It does hit newsstands sometimes about a week earlier if the trucks get there. So the newsstands usually put the magazines out on Tuesday. They could check out the newsstands today, see if it is out there. And it's 352 pages. Gives you 2 full pages on each and every team, 3 to 4 times the amount of information any other college football preview magazine out there. But if you can't wait for next Tuesday to come around, yes, you can download it to your iPad or iPhone through the Apple Store or your Android device through Google Play. And sometimes folks opt to do both because, as you guys know, you probably get your magazine a little dog-eared by the end of the season from using it every single day. And if you have it available on your iPad or iPhone, it gets a little less wear and tear during the season.
Follow him at PhilSteele042 on the Twitter machine. It's remarkable what you do. And enjoy your vacation time working 50 hours a week.
Well, I appreciate that. And always good talking football. I'll tell you, the majority of my radio shows, TV shows are down south, but one of the states that's always right up there at the top is Utah. So I love talking football in Utah.
Phil, great to talk to you, man. We appreciate the time during your busy, off-season schedule. Thanks so much.